Now there's a difference of opinion. Did the story of Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, did it occur at the end of the Khilafah of Ali radiallahu anhu or at the beginning of the Khilafah of Muawiyah? We don't know. And scholars disagree. I'm going by the timeline in general of Dr. Ayman Suwaid, his choice is that it was the time of Ali radiallahu anhu. Again, it's a difference of opinion. It's not big. Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali lived through both terms, so his timeline fits both. We don't know exactly when this happened. And there's a story that's circulated and related to Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, but also the scholars are unable to verify it. So it may or may not be true, but I'm going to tell you the story. Either Ali radiallahu anhu or Muawiyah, whoever was the Khalifa of the time, initially asked Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. And he was definitely the top choice because he was a scholar, he was a hafiz of Qur'an, he was a tabi'i, and he was the top grammatical scholar of the time, and also he was a faqih, multiple areas of scholarship. So he was asked to help solve a problem. Solve this problem. People are making mistakes while reading the Qur'an because there are no aids to tell them, is this a fatha, dhamma, or kasra? How do you pronounce this word? So he had initially refused, the same way Abu Bakr who had refused and Zayd had refused. He said, how can I do something that the Prophet ﷺ didn't do, and neither did Abu Bakr or Umar or Uthman do? I'm not going to change anything in the Quran. It must remain untouched. And then it is said the Khalifa, it possibly could be Muawiyah, Allahu A'lam, staged the following, or it happened by accident. So here's where the different narrations come in. So again, take it as possibly it was staged, possibly it just happened. So Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, rahimahullah, has a daily routine where he leaves his house, goes along a certain path to his to the masjid or wherever he has the majlis ilm where he teaches, or the court where he judges. He was a judge, he was a qadi. And along the way, one day, he heard someone reciting the first few ayahs of Surah At-Tawbah, which contain this phrase, أَنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَرَسُولُهُ. That's the correct recitation, which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bari. This is where I need a good translation help. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has nothing to do with, but I'm sure there's a better word, nothing to do with the mushrikeen, the polytheists. And his prophet has nothing to do with them. يعني وَرَسُولُهُ بَرِيءٌ مِّنْهُمْ. Now the mistake Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali heard being recited was أَنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, and then the reciter pronounced وَرَسُولِهِ with a kasra, meaning that Allah has nothing to do or is bari from the polytheists and is bari from his prophet. So Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali was like, he didn't know that the problem was this deep, affecting the meaning to this terrifying level where it's switching the meaning around and causing a meaning that is by all means far from what was intended from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in revealing this verse. So it is said that that incident is what made him then, he went to the Khalifa of the time, whether it be Ali radiallahu anhu or Muawiyah, and he said, okay, I'll do it. So whether it was staged or whether it was يعني قدر الله ما شاء فعل, either way, Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali did do this project. So it's confirmed definitely by so many sources that he was the scholar who took on this project. It's just disagreed when and how it happened. Okay, so now he's Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, and he needs to figure out a system that has not been invented. By all scholars agree that the invention of a representation, a written representation of fatha, dhamma, and kasra did not exist at all. They disagree about the dots on the letters, the jim and ha and kha, ba, ta, and tha. But the fatha, dhamma, and kasra invented from scratch by Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. Genius. So the first thing he knew was important was, if he's going to add a human effort to the written Mushaf, it must be in a different color. Why? The Masahif were in black, were written in black, as we talked about, the coal, basically, substance. And black means it was written that way in front of the Prophet ﷺ. So he did not want to use the black color, because then he would be mixing a human effort that came after the wahi with what was approved by the wahi at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So he chose the opposite, basically. In the land of ink, the opposite color of black is usually red. So that's what he used. And he called one of his top students, Wallahu a'lam, he is Nasr bin Asim. I think the next slide talks about it. Yes. So he calls his top student, Nasr bin Asim, and he says, use this red ink and watch my lips. As I pronounce the ayahs or the words, if you see that I'm opening my mouth with a fatha, then put a red dot where? Up, because I'm opening my mouth. So put a red dot on top of the letter. If you see my mouth pronouncing a kasra, E, so my jaw goes more down than it would be than a fatha, then put a dot under the letter. If you see my lips going forward, oo, like a Cheerios, that's from me. He didn't say Cheerios. There were no Cheerios invented back then. May Allah give them much more than Cheerios in Jannah. If you see my lips going forward with a dhamma, then put a red dot after the letter, because the lips are going forward. So it's after the letter. He also said, if you hear me pronouncing a noon that's not scribed, meaning the tanween, okay, like alimun hakim. So there's a noon being pronounced that's not written. He said, then put an extra dot indicating that noon letter. And that was the beginning of inventing the tashkil. يعني genius, توفيق من Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يعني a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have such a simple system, a red dot, up, down, in front, wonderful. And an extra dot if it's a tanween. It's just so beautiful, such simple, yet solves the problem. MashaAllah. And it's red, so there's no fear of it being misunderstood to be part of an ayah. So it's not misunderstood to be an additional something added to the Qur'an. Just wonderful. Radiallahu anhum, rahimahumullah ta'ala. And here, this is a photo, I think I took it with my camera. It could be from one of my friends' cameras. There was an exhibit that came to the DC metro area to the Smithsonian Museum. October 2016 through February 2017. So it remained for a few months. And they brought the masahif, what is it called? The manuscripts that are kept in the Museum of Istanbul, which is one of the major museums of Quran in the world. So they brought it to our area. So that exhibit was swarming with Muslims, alhamdulillah, and scholars and non-Muslims. It was a wonderful exhibit. For me, walking through the doors, I'm sure anyone who was there can agree with the feeling. I started crying. I don't know. I felt like, I hope no one looked at me. I started really tears were streaming down my face, because my eyes were falling on manuscripts that were so old that some of them were possibly written by tabi'een, maybe Sahaba. And you see the handwriting right in front of you. Of course, it's behind glass. You couldn't touch them. But it just, the heart, I felt that connection. I don't know how to describe it. Right now you're looking at this through a screen, but when you're there in the museum and you see the texture and you know that this parchment was probably held by a Sahabi and for sure a Tabi'i, it's just overwhelming, the mashaa'ir, the feelings. So here is this is from that museum. And this is a page from a Mushaf, and this would have been how it would look at the time of Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. So we're talking about the Khalifa of Ali or Muawiyah. We're talking about 50 Hijri, 50 through 70 Hijri. And this is how, this is real. This is a page of one of these masahif. It's possible Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali himself maybe touched this.